It took me a lot of years to realize vulnerability is actually a sign of strength.
Yeah.
And I always joke with them and say, one of the things that the distributors love about me is that I understand distribution pretty well.
Yeah.
One of the things they hate about me is I understand distribution pretty well.
Yeah.
Not really a process guy. I'm more of a people guy, but I'm learning process in my latter years.
Yeah, no, it's good. And we need both, right? If we were all the same, come on, that wouldn't work. So it's good to have one that's on the people side. That's magic there, I think, because you need to understand people, right? And read the room, read the people. There's so much, layers in this.
Asking for help.
Yeah.
In a negative way, but it's actually a way you're saying, hey, I want to learn this, and I'm not getting it. Can you help me? And I think that we need more of that, I guess is my point.
Yeah. And I've been on the same, sitting there where I look at somebody saying, oh, thank God they asked, right? And other times I'm the one asking.
I remember, when I was a younger salesperson and less experienced is probably more appropriate. I would go back to the sales manager and say, oh, well, they asked for a better price. And my sales manager at the time was a lot older than me. He goes, well, of course she did. That's her job, Andy.
Yeah.
Now, what did you do? Did you do your job and start negotiating and countering that? Everyone hates role playing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. And I had role playing on the itinerary. And they're like, oh, my God. I haven't done that since I was 25 years old. I can't believe Coyle.
No.
And when it was all over in the survey and the feedback that night at the bar and all that, it was the most fun and the best part of the meeting.
It takes a lot to be a great leader, I think.
Still working on it.
Yeah, life mission here. The basic of selling are quietly disappearing. Product training expanded, CRM training expanding, AI training is next. Sales training, the kind that teaches the sales rep how to read a buyer across a desk, got smaller every year. And then COVID arrived and most of us forgot how to sell. Welcome to Leadership Manufacturing Podcast. I'm your host, Sannah. I'm an engineer, go-to-market leader, focusing on how leaders operate when complexity is high and the answers are not always obvious. This show is for leaders across electronics, manufacturing, distribution, and supply chain. It's about practical leadership for technical teams. No hype, no theory, just what actually works. My guest today is Andy Coyle. And I wanted to talk to him because he's been in the industry through every major shift, and he's clear about what changed and what did not. He started it in the electronics industry in the spring of 1989, and 5 years at Hallmark Electronics, a decade at Sega Electronics, and then a pivot into the manufacturing side at Laird Technologies, where he built a distribution program from scratch. Today, he leads sales and channel development at IBM Pabst, and his team had hit forecast, grown profitability for 8 straight years. And this reason gives him the same one he gave when he started. It's always been about the people. In this conversation, we talked about mobility, it's a leadership skills, and what most companies get wrong when they cut sales training, and what changes when his team went back to the basics. We also touches on AI, that it's a tool, the role it plays in his role, and why the last mile of any deal still happens face-to-face. So let's get into it. Enjoy the episode. Thanks for tuning in to Leadership Manufacturing Podcast. I am joined by Andy Coyle, and he's a Senior Director of Sales and Channel Development at IBM Pabst. We're getting into what it really means to lead a high-touch leader in a high-tech industry. And we're also going to touch on what most interactions, are no longer how trust is built. It's much more face-to-face, and it's all about sales training and leadership that needs to evolve much more now that AI has become a bigger part of the day-to-day in our work. So, Andy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Yeah. So, okay, I always want to start like this. I want to hear your passion for the industry.
Well, there's no question. For me, it's always been the people. When I started in the industry, again, it was really all about the people. Our trainings were always about product and technology, but the people and the relationships, and not only with customers but distributor partners, with colleagues, has been the most rewarding and fulfilling part of my
Yeah.
career from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
Not really a process guy. I'm more of a people guy, but I'm learning process in my latter years.
Yeah, no, it's good. And we need both, right? If we were all the same, come on, that wouldn't work. So it's good to have one that's on the people side.
Yeah.
That's magic there, I think, because you need to understand people, right? And read the room, read the people. There's so much, layers in this.
It's funny you mentioned that. That's I've got a colleague that I'm learning a lot from, and we're really excited. A couple of years ago, we hired a Gen Z
Yeah.
salesperson,
Yeah.
and it's been really fascinating for me to understand. He's a very smart, very technically competent person, and we went on a ride together the last month and visited accounts together. And I learned a lot from him because he was so proficient with pulling up drawings and slides while I was talking on behalf of being the senior person in the room and sharing some things that we were doing at
Yeah.
EBM PAPS. And we worked so well as a team.
Nice.
And, I learned a lot from him from a standpoint of just becoming more comfortable with the technology that I need sometimes to make my presentation or my point go better. But
Yeah.
one of the interesting things that I was tickled about, I asked him, I said, "So did you learn anything from the old guy, with you
Yeah.
here on the call?" And he did say, he said, "Andy," he said, "my calls when I go in alone are very technical, and then we talk about the business, and the meeting's over, and I leave." And he said, "What I learned with you is the meetings with the customers last a lot longer." And I was like, "Well, I talk a lot." He goes, "Well, no, also you got them talking about how did they start their business?
Yeah.
Um, tell me about the history of your company and those kinds of things." And I think what he learned, and you mentioned it earlier, reading the room
Yeah.
and some of those things that come to some of us more innately, as
Yeah.
far as reading the room and communicating in a group and those things, but also um, taking the opportunity to try to build that relationship. Again, for me, without the relationships, going back to the people question you started with,
Yeah.
I could not have survived in any career, certainly not the electronics industry for sure. So
Yeah.
that's been a great experience, is knowing that there's some things that a young boomer like me can
Yeah.
teach a
Yeah.
Gen Z, but
Yeah.
that I'm learning a lot from them as well, and how we can uh, together with our
Yeah.
strength.
I love that much because I think even if you're like a mentor or not a mentor, if you work together, right, as a team, it's never like a one way, right? You both learn from each other, and it's so important that everyone in the team, right, or if it's just two people, that you listen to each other and actually can see, what is it that I learned. And sometimes as well, I'm sure somebody will note and saying, "Okay, I will never do that," right? Because it's not everything that's that would always be great. But it's so important that both have that mindset to say, "What can I learn?" So that's some good, yeah,
It's interesting you mentioned that. One of the things that, and I don't know if it's less prevalent now. I don't want to sound like an old fuddy duddy, but I can remember when in my younger years in the industry, which I started in the electronics industry in the spring, this time of year in 1989.
yeah,
And I remember seeking mentors just purposefully,
yeah,
and trying to learn from the guys that had been calling on accounts, the women that I worked with, especially in my first job, the inside salespeople and the outside salesperson. That relationship and that team is so critical. And I've commented over the years, and people that know me, I remember, I remember their names: Trina
yeah,
Kaiser, Letta Yarvanettes, Julie DiStefano, Julie Caldwell. These are women that on the inside sales desk partnered with me made me look much better than
Oh,
I ever should have as an outside representative to the customer.
yeah.
And I know we didn't plan on talking about that, but I think that's definitely
Yeah.
worthy
Oh,
of
kudos to
mention.
that.
And I love keeping in touch with them today.
Yeah, and that's also acknowledgement, right? That you know what took you there, right? It takes a village, but it also takes respect, I think, of getting there, right? Because you need to show your respect as all the support you got, to get there.
I will tell you, I've had a lot of different roles, fortunately, in the industry for different companies. The one that I've never had, and I don't think I am equipped emotionally or intellectually, is to be an inside salesperson in distribution because that is a tough job.
Yeah,
You have to be able to think on your feet. You have to
yeah,
be able to develop relationships without seeing the person. You
yeah,
have to be proficient in the system so that the system doesn't slow you down from communicating with the customer or partner.
yeah.
So I've always had a lot of respect for that job.
Yeah. So
But I've never wanted to do it.
and that's okay, right? There's room for everyone here. But I want to talk about, as just you said, right? Because you worked in distribution and you also been on the manufacturing side. So what's the difference and how does that make you even more valuable now that you understand like both sides of the table here?
Well, yeah, that's a great point. One of the things that we're so fortunate at EBM Paps to have great distribution partners. And I always joke with them and say, one of the things that the distributors love about me is that I understand distribution pretty well.
Yeah.
One of the things they hate about me is I understand distribution pretty well. But I can tell you that what I learned in coming to the manufacturing world, it's a different pace. And I
Yeah.
don't know how to explain it other than that, in that every person that I've hired who came from distribution and then wanted to engage in a manufacturing role in the
Yeah.
sales arena, I always had to slow them down because the distribution pace and the distribution work ethic, which I have the utmost respect for, is very different. Now, that doesn't mean that the manufacturers are smoking cigars and playing golf and waiting for distributor orders.
I
I
do
don't
play a
do
lot of golf. Come on. No.
that. Yes, we do. We do enjoy that. But in all sincerity, it's a different pace. Especially for some of us that are global manufacturers, where we have resources and decision making that can happen, all over the world. And when you are designing a new product or coming out with some features that the customer needs and to make their system work better, the design phase, the engineering back and forth and resources, and the design cycle takes time.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not suggesting that doesn't work the same with distribution, but in the meantime, there's also orders to be picked up, there's purchasing to be called on, there's
Yeah.
supply chain services that the distributors provide so much better than any manufacturer that I've ever been a part of or gotten to know. So to me, the biggest difference is, and I've always had to, about 6 months in, every person that I've hired in the manufacturing sales arena, they come to me like, Andy, things aren't happening, fast enough. Like, am I going, and
Yeah.
I'm like, everything's going fine. You need to slow your pace down because the design cycle,
Yeah.
the response, and those things. Fortunately for us, because we're not as fast and nimble as our distributor partners, that's why we need distributor partners. But that transition to manufacturing from distribution, I'd say it's a different pace.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a more deliberate. There's more involved as far as I said, engineering and resources and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one of the biggest differences from my perspective that I've noticed with, again, everyone that I've worked with.
Yeah. No, that's a really good observation, right? And it's also just talking about it. I have that communicate about it. I think it's so important, right? You don't wait for that 6 months review and saying, okay, now I'm ready to tell you how things are going. It has to be like a day to day. And also, I think the people you have, right, coming to you and saying, oh, what's going on, right? Is it
Yeah.
okay? That's also really good, right? Because it's vulnerable, right, to come to you and saying, oh my God, right? Am I performing, what is the expectations and is everything okay? It's awesome that they can ask you that, because that means that your door is open. It means that they trust you, right?
Well, I certainly work hard on that. Yes, and you mentioned a key word that I think didn't know. I don't know that I planned on talking about this, but it really hit home with me. It took me a lot of years to realize vulnerability is actually a sign of strength.
Yeah.
Because so many times in a group setting, in a big conference call or web meeting or a training, asking that question,
Yeah.
you need that person in the room, and
You do.
fortunately or unfortunately for the room, sometimes I'm that person who's asking that question now, because probably half the room really has that on their mind but doesn't want to
They're
say
afraid
it.
of to do it. Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
me, I think being vulnerable means saying, you know what, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
I want to. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And people look at asking for help
Yeah.
in a negative way, but it's actually a way you're saying, hey, I want to learn this,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm not getting it. Can you help me? And I
Yeah.
think that we need more of that, I guess
Yeah.
is my point.
Yeah. And I've been on the same, sitting there where I look at somebody saying, oh, thank God they asked, right? And other times I'm the one asking. So I totally get it. But it's also a relief when somebody else is asking, right? Because you're like, oh. But then
Absolutely.
I want to say, because then again, when you then ask, right? Here you can see the real leader, because if the person up there is just using the same words again, they didn't get it, right? They need to use different words to explain it, because there was somebody right in that audience that didn't understand it. So, and that's not every leader that understands that. So again, just
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's funny. I was a speech communications major, business minor in college,
Yeah.
and I always pride myself on communication. And pride might not be the right word, but I certainly work hard, and I guess I do take pride in that. I really, some people would call me an over communicator, which can be annoying sometimes. But I really, if you see me getting frustrated or challenged
Yeah.
in a meeting with a team on an issue with a customer, a
Yeah.
distributor, it's because I can feel the disconnect, that we're not connecting, we're not communicating the message, the understanding each other, and that is probably the number one frustration that I have in any of my business or personal
Yeah. Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's a really good skill to have, right? Because that's back to what we started, like read the room. No, I think no, it is.
Yeah, no
But it,
question. I was making that face because, you know, while I think I excel at that, I certainly have fallen down a few times as far as making sure the message gets to my team, or that I'm getting the right message from corporate and senior management and those kinds of things. And
yeah,
you know, I joke with the team, middle management, director level, those kinds of things. One of the challenges is we really have a foot in the field if
yeah,
we're doing it right, obviously, and a foot in corporate, which means we get kicked in the crotch a lot. Forgive me. Yeah. You can cut that out. But anyway, like sometimes, balancing, understanding, the objectives and the vision for the
yeah,
company, and communicating that down so that it's received,
yeah,
understood, and
yeah,
then represented to the customer and distributor by the sales team. That's a big job. And I think sometimes um, we in management and director level and those kinds of things tend to forget how important and challenging connecting the resources and the vision of your company to the customer, to the people facing the customer
yeah.
and distributor.
Yeah.
partners. So
Yeah.
anyway.
No, and I just want to go back to what you also said is that you were not, I don't know, now it's my words, right, but not perfect all the time, which is yeah, what did she say? No,
Never.
but
No, no, never.
no, but I think that's how we learn as well, right? If you don't, you have to go to these, where you learn, right? And then you're saying, oh, that was not the best way, right? Next time, if I'm this kind of situation, right, I will word it differently, or I will read the room differently, or this is how I will do it. I think it's also important that you have these learnings, because otherwise, again, you cannot be a great leader. But you also need to be sure, right, that you show around you to who you work with, by saying, yeah, okay, that was not maybe the best way to approach it. Let's do this differently. So
Yeah.
it takes a lot to be a great leader, I think.
Still working on it.
Yeah, life mission here. No,
Yeah.
I want to talk about like sales training and product training, because sometimes sales training do not get the same like visibility or the importance. So what have you seen in the balance of how do you do sales training and product training?
Yeah, that's a big one for me too. It sounds like, when we talked earlier, it's always been a hot button for me. There's no question that, as a manufacturer, we need to understand our technology and be able to communicate that to customers and distributor partners, and how that, yeah, interfaces with their systems and their products, that makes them successful with their customers.
Yeah,
And that's a necessary thing. And I think that over the years we have really focused so much on product training and technology training, and I'll add, in the last 10 years, CRM training, which
yeah,
is hugely important. We forget the sales training and the basics of, I'm sitting across the desk from a buyer, right? What is she thinking?
yeah,
What does she need from me and my company?
yeah,
What is could be a tough pricing negotiation,
yeah,
or return, or something that is going to financially impact both parties, right? And sometimes, uh, I remember, when I was a younger salesperson and less experienced is probably more appropriate. Um, I would go back to the sales manager and say, "Oh, well, they asked for a better price," and my sales manager at the time was a lot older than me. He goes, "Well, of course she did. That's her job, Andy.
yeah,
Now, what did you do? Did you do your job and start negotiating and countering that?" And I think that interaction, which can be confrontational at times,
yeah,
especially with, there's a lot of customers out there, old school customers, that forget that, we like to use words like partnership, and that some of our biggest, when I moved into manufacturing, I started working with global and more complex public companies and those things,
yeah,
and worked with a lot of great buyers and supply chain leaders and those kinds of things. So don't misunderstand me. But I worked with a lot of them that were very zero sum game. Like, well, I'm the customer, so therefore I need this. You need to do this. And part of helping the salespeople in the training is, it's okay to tell the customer, look, I sell Cadillacs. You're asking me to make a Lincoln for you.
yeah,
I don't make Lincolns.
yeah,
So don't act like I'm not trying to do what you don't want. I'm not trying to not do what you want me to do. I'm saying that's not who we are.
yeah.
And I'll tell you where this comes up a lot. And again, I'm getting off a little bit, but
Okay,
in
that's
the
fine.
sales training,
Yeah,
helping our salespeople understand with confidence that it's okay to say, yeah, that's not what we do. Oh, you're looking for weekly shipments. You're looking for bonded inventory. You're
yeah,
looking for better terms.
yeah,
I'm a high volume manufacturer of fan
yeah,
motors. I'm not a supply chain solution person. Let
yeah,
me introduce you to one of my distributor partners, and they'll do this for you,
yeah,
because that's not. But I want you to do it. Well, I know what a typical electronics
yeah,
supply chain leader wants. Is they want my price and the distributor service.
yeah,
That's what they want at the end of the day. But helping our sales team understand every interaction, I tell them, I say, you've been out to buy a car before. You'll walk off the lot if you are having a bad experience or you're not getting through to
Yeah.
the salesperson that you want a better price. You'll walk off the lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to walk off the lot when it comes to a customer negotiation. And I don't mean burn a bridge, but
No.
I mean stand up for the company, stand
Yeah.
up for it, especially when you know that you're being reasonable.
Yeah.
Most customers are reasonable, but there are times when they're being unreasonable, and it's okay to call them out on that professionally. And that takes experience, some scars and bruises over the years, as I say, and it
Yeah.
also takes a back and forth negotiation. So putting more emphasis on the basic, regardless of whether you're selling semiconductors, switches, fans, or sham wows.
Yeah.
Whatever you're selling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just the pure, building trust and convincing the customer that your product is superior in the way that it will benefit them
Yeah.
and their market.
Yeah.
And that focus is sometimes the tertiary or last thought. I'll give you a quick example. When we went through COVID and the global component shortage and all that stuff, a couple of years ago, I said to my boss, I said, look, we haven't been in front of a customer in a couple of years. Everything's on Teams,
Yeah.
phone call. We forgot how to sell. And I think that was true for most everyone.
Yeah.
As far as, so we did something called a reset. And of course, I always have to put names to meetings. So I called it boot camp.
Yeah.
Boot camp, basic training. And we went back like you would in soccer or football or baseball, and went back to the basics. And we said, okay, we went from the very beginning of a sales process of networking, prospecting, pre-call planning, the actual sales call, post-call follow-up, travel and entertainment, and we went through everything, the elevator pitch, and we did 2 days, 3 days of solid back to the basics.
Yeah.
And it was probably, and we didn't just lecture people, we actually did it together and we learned from each other. And I thought it was I was fortunate to hear from a lot of the salespeople that they really got a lot out of it, because it wasn't me standing up and lecturing or presenting a bunch of slides. It was a workshop and people were standing up, and everyone hates role playing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. And I had role playing on the itinerary. And they're like, oh my God. I haven't done that since I was 25 years old. I can't believe Coyle.
No.
And when it was all over in the survey and the feedback that night at the bar and all that, it was the most fun and the best part of the meeting. But the anticipation, back to asking the question, the vulnerability, the nervousness, talking about things that everyone in the room knows what you're supposed to say. That's why role playing is harder than talking to a customer directly.
Yeah.
So I know I went off a lot.
No. I really like it. But and what you're touching us as well, right? Is the customer, right? That buyer's journey, right? How it takes, and when do you grab them? When you have the information, when do you network, right? There's so many touch points. But I want to ask you now, because with AI and also based from after the pandemic, right? How we communicate is less, I think, face to face in certain areas. So how has AI now, has that make any disruptions in your sales training? Quick pause before we continue. If what Andy just said about leadership and trust is something you're thinking about right now, the Leadership Manufacturing newsletter goes deeper on this every week. It's built for leaders in the electronics manufacturing and the distribution. Subscribe at leadershipmanufacturing.com, and link will also be in the show notes. Back to the show.
It's funny that you mention AI. Again, dating myself, when I started in the industry, and I'm a boomer, but I'm the youngest boomer. I'm the last of the boomers. So when I was born, I used to, my tagline, as we talked about in the on LinkedIn, is a high touch leader in a high tech world,
Yeah.
which sounds a lot better. What I had in there before that was misunderstood because it was analog guy living in a digital world,
Yeah, I
which
like that.
I did too, but it did need some exclamation, because some people would look at that and go, "Oh,
Oh,
there's an old guy that doesn't want to try new things."
yeah.
And I think that for me, nothing could be further from the truth. If you're not learning, you're dying.
Yeah.
And whether in the industry, and you talked about AI, and I want to get back to that. For 2 years, I've been using AI as a young boomer.
Yeah.
A year ago, I asked my sales team, and we're talking about 25 years old to 60 years old in the sales team and everything in between,
Yeah.
about and the sales leaders, who here is using AI? And at that time, no one was,
Yeah.
which surprised me. And I think it surprised them even more that I was. But I don't really use Google anymore. I use ChatGPT for work. I use Copilot. What AI has done for me personally and professionally, first of all, personally, I fixed my irrigation system. I take care of my pool because I use ChatGPT and
Yeah.
tells me exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Um, in my professional life, it has truly helped me do research. It's helped me look at things differently, from the basic things of comparing two Excel spreadsheets
Yeah.
very quickly, which used to take, I'm not really great with Excel. When I can pivot a table and that's about it, okay?
Yeah.
But you know, if not this, then that, and all
Yeah.
those Excel formulas. Now I just spit it into AI and it comes out and gives it to
Yeah.
me now. So I'm a believer in AI as a tool. But here's what I mean when I say analog guy in a digital world. When things go really, really bad between two companies,
Yeah.
whether it's a distributor and a manufacturer and a customer, a distributor and a customer, when things go really bad or the opportunity is really big, people are getting on a plane and they're going face to face.
Yeah.
So in the end of the day, and I used to talk about it like this, I think I might have shared this with you, Sannah, but if you look at when I started the business in the early 90s,
Yeah.
the pie was all analog,
Yeah.
because that's all there was. Wasn't a
Yeah.
cell phone yet, da, da, da. I think I got a pager sometime in 91. So now there's still a piece of that pie that's analog.
Yeah.
It's just a smaller piece,
Yeah.
you know,
So I,
but
I
there's
call it
still a
like the
piece.
last mile, because you can have
Ah,
AI, right? In the beginning, you do a lot of work because you need to have your critical thinking. You need to be strategic. There's so much in between. Then again, right? If you want to pivot or use, again, AI to say, let me zoom in, is it correct? What kind of, but again, the last mile there, you have to
See,
be the
that's why
person.
you're brilliant. That's why you have a podcast. The last mile sounds much more sophisticated than, my pie analogy.
You can use it. It's okay.
Thank you. It's funny. The other thing about, we didn't necessarily get into this, and maybe this you can decide whether this is worthy of the podcast. But one of the things that I talked to the sales team about, also being a salesperson, a sales leader, a sales frontline person,
Yeah.
inside, outside, really speaking to outside, because that's my experience. It's really a great job from a standpoint of, I really decide, with the exception of EDS, ECIA conferences, things that are on the calendar for
Yeah.
your company's events, every year. I pretty much decide when I'm going to travel, where I'm going to travel, which customers I'm going to see, which salespeople I'm going to go visit. So 70, 80% of my schedule, I really get to be in charge of it.
Yeah.
And I remind our salespeople that sometimes when they feel like they're being put upon, and for doing their job as a salesperson, I said, it's really. I said, I need my 20%. You got to give me my 20%. You get your 80%,
Yeah.
but sometimes it, just like I say, LinkedIn. I'm being a little facetious here, but LinkedIn is. wonderful. And I remember I was first on LinkedIn when there were 9 million people on it.
Oh, wow.
I was an early adapter
Yeah.
to LinkedIn. And I can tell you that not everything is, sometimes it's not a career and kumbaya and great environment and team. Sometimes it's just a job.
Yeah.
And 10 or 20% of that, you know, some days it's just a grind and it's a job. And fortunately, if you work for the right company that makes sense to you and you fit with the right company and the right team, it's 80% of the time it's great, and 20% of the time it's a job,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's a grind.
Yeah.
And that's why it's called work, and that's healthy and that's okay. And sometimes we spoiled salespeople, I'll include myself in that, need to be reminded of that.
Was that in your sales training as well on the boot camp? No.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
You could ask, yeah. In fact, I don't know if my team will ever see this, but perhaps they will. Maybe I'll even encourage it so they can call me out if I'm fibbing too much, but I don't think
Yeah.
I am. That was a part of the boot camp, was like, hey, don't forget the company, and I'm representing the company really. I
Yeah.
said, Andy gets his 10, 20%. Like,
Yeah.
you got 80%. You're doing
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
But, so let's sometimes salespeople, especially I'll speak to the companies I work for. We've got salespeople that are working out of their houses. They're not connected to a team every day.
Yeah.
They're working remote. It can get lonely out there,
Yeah.
and sometimes you can feel like you're not connected in those things.
Yeah.
And reminding them that they're part of something,
Yeah.
and it is important, because sometimes you can get negative and you can, and those kinds of things. And I've always been a big proponent of building, during COVID, put together pods. And
Yeah.
I mixed up the geographies and the disciplines. I said, okay, this team, you talk about whatever you want to talk about, while we're going through COVID. What are your challenges in your job?
Yeah.
What are you struggling with? Maybe this other person can help you with it.
Yeah.
And not have a supervisor or manager get involved in that. Let them talk. And I was just finding out, someone told me a month ago that one of the pods is still meeting today. It
Nice.
kind of became a
Yeah.
support group of
Yeah.
people that have
Yeah.
shared
Yeah.
experiences and things.
And that's where you get more personal, right? And that's where you build the relationship. And you're right, your supervisor or your manager, right? Sometimes it's great if they're not there, because it just gives a more relaxed form, right? Where you can share different things. But that's awesome that they still meet.
Yeah, I was tickled to hear that. And I used to joke with them. I'd say, you guys need to talk to each other more. My frontline leaders, the area sales directors that I have been fortunate to help develop and
Yeah.
promote and be a part of their team. We used to joke with them. I go, you guys need to talk to each other behind my back. I said, maybe I need to start treating you guys badly, so at least you can bond over what a jerk I'm being to you.
You're like feeding them topics here. No.
Actually, there's a great American Olympic story from 1980, and it's actually really the miracle on ice, right? When the Americans beat the Russians in hockey, and there's a great documentary on it. But the gentleman, and I forget his name, the head coach Herb, who had people from Minnesota and people from Boston,
Yeah.
and they competed with each other collegiately,
Yeah.
and they did not like each other.
Yeah.
And now he was bringing them together on the same team to represent America in the Olympics.
Yeah.
And he purposefully treated them, so harshly as a drill sergeant, and
So
worked
they
them
could
so hard
bond
that
over
they would
that.
hate him, so they would bond over
Yeah.
that.
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
It's a great story. And
Yeah.
forgive me for not
No,
remembering her
no, it's fine. It's fine.
last
Yeah,
name.
no, that's it's not that you should treat people nice, okay? But in that situation, it was clever. Oh no, I like it. I want to go back a little bit on the AI, because I think we learn every day, right? So what have you been one of the biggest surprises or lessons you've learned now that you've used AI for more than 2 years?
How couple of things. How easy it is to really uh, find out how to do something, how to, understand. I'm not an engineer. As I said before, I'm a speech communications major from a D3 school, liberal arts school. So I'm not someone who's really ever been excited about um, how things work, working with my hands, understanding engineering. I have a lot of respect for the people that do,
Yeah.
especially at our company. But anyway, what AI has done is kind of made things seem simple to me that I shared earlier. I was able to fix my irrigation system in
Yeah.
my house. I was able to fix a car on my part on my wife's car, which I normally would never do. But
Yeah.
AI, ChatGPT, made it seem so easy.
Yeah.
I did it. ChatGPT tells me how the water. I check on the guy that works on my pool, and my goal is to take over doing it myself.
Yeah.
And with ChatGPT, that's given me the confidence to do that.
Yeah.
Now at work, it's shortened up things. It's done research
Yeah.
for me in different ways. It needs a little bit more guidance. The other thing I've really loved about AI is it remembers
Yeah.
previous. Uh, I've never. It's funny, even though I've been using it for 2 years, I type everything in. I've got friends of mine that have
Oh, sure. Yeah.
conversations,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and back and forth, and almost like a relationship. And
A little scary,
I'm
but
not.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. Yeah, that's for sure. But I think that it's also interesting. I have some friends. I've recently moved to South Carolina. We've lived here for 2 years now, and I've gotten some friends that are retired, and I have a great guy that I've gotten to know, um, and he's 88 years old,
Yeah.
and he was a sales guy,
Yeah.
and he loves talking to me about what's going on these days in
Yeah.
sales, and he's really worried about AI. Think
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
uh, like I said, he's 20 plus years older than me, and what his life was in
Yeah.
sales.
Yeah.
It's funny. I saw a meme today, this morning. It was a retired father talking to his son, and he was proud of his son. He's in sales, and he's talking to his son. He's like, "So what have you learned, about selling? Like, how are you doing with, prospecting and getting appointments to go see people?" He goes, "Oh, I have someone that does that pre-call stuff for me, and they set my appointments." And he goes,
Yeah.
"Okay." And he goes, "Okay, well, what about the technical stuff about your job and how it goes?" "Oh, I have a solutions engineer that does that for me." And this is an old plumbing sales guy, fathers, trying to
Yeah.
understand what. And he goes, "Well, what about when you get the deal and you got to put a contract together?" He goes, "Oh, we have a deal desk that does that for me."
Yeah.
So his dad says, "What do you do if
Yeah.
it's selling, right?" Um, so I thought that was funny, but I do think that back to AI and the analog world,
Yeah.
and there's no difference in the result to build a trustful relationship with a customer, with a distributor partner.
Yeah.
It was a little different back in the day, but at the end of the day, you still have to get to that point of trust.
Yeah.
And think about every deal you've ever been a part of, every contract or anything that was big. At the end of it, or at the beginning of the new relationship, when you got to that contract point, people came together at least then face to face
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
right? And I think at the end of the day, building trust is the core foundation. There's a great book called The Speed of Trust that Stephen Covey wrote, that is a great book based on that. He can quantify how fast business gets done
Yeah.
based on building trust fast, and actually quantify. The concept is very simple. your best friend wants to go and invest in something together, and you've known this person all your life, that decision's going to be,
Yeah, it's much easier.
faster for
Yeah.
you
Oh,
or
yeah,
easier
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
versus, some stranger. So the concept is really, pretty easy, but it talked about how to build trust with customers and partners and those things.
Yeah.
So,
I like that. And he said something in this conversation that landed for me. He called himself a high touch leader in a high tech world. That is the move. The tool changes, the basics do not. The sales rep who are winning right now are the ones who never stop doing the boring parts so well. And they're like learning how to read the room, asking the buyer what he or she needs, walking off the lot when it's the right call. And if you lead a sales team in this industry, the question worth sitting is whether your training is teaching them to use the tools or to do the job. If this conversation gave you something to think about, send it to somebody in your network who will get a lot of value from it. This is how the show finds leaders that is actually meant to reach. So thank you for listening to Leadership Manufacturing. See you next time.